Okay, so today I have special guests. This is my mom, and this is my girlfriend, Catherine, and they are here to help talk about my lung transplant experience, since they are the two people who went through it with me. And there were a lot of parts that I was not conscious for, or that I was too drugged up to remember. So a little assistance is helpful in telling the tale of the transplant. Leading up, well, did you want to talk about like what it was like leading up to the transplant?
Well, it was pretty scary leading up to the transplant.
Yeah.
Corinne Eliana, sorry. She's Corinne to me. Got really sick really fast, and that was pretty hard to watch. And just sitting there hour by hour watching her struggle to breathe, since that was kind of a new experience that hadn't happened for the 40 years before that.
Yeah, it was so quick too. Like you
Yeah.
just did this like nosedive. It got to the point where you were just like basically sitting on the couch all day, in a chair all day.
We're in a hospital bed all day.
Yeah.
And half the time when you guys would come visit, I was asleep. Like, you guys spent many hours literally just watching me sleep because I had no energy to do anything else, like day after day.
Yeah, it was a pretty scary time.
Yeah.
So when she called us at midnight to say
Well, so I
there were
ended up,
lungs.
I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. They sent me home, not because I was better, but because there was like nothing else that they could really like do for me. The truth is, I really think the main reason they sent me home is because I was pushing so hard. I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. I think they would have been just as happy to keep me there given how sick I was. But they, got to a point where they felt like, okay, I was stable enough to go home. I wanted to go home so badly, so they sent me home. That was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
I thought, my thinking was, if I'm just going to be sick and miserable and you can't do anything, let me be sick and miserable at home. I thought I would be more comfortable at home. I was wrong.
Well, you went home on 8 liters, which should have been manageable, but your oxygen need rose so quickly while you were at home that it quickly became
Totally
unmanageable.
unmanageable.
Right, we literally had 2 oxygen generator things hooked together.
To try and give me enough oxygen, and it
Yeah.
still was not giving me enough. So yeah, that was a pretty miserable week and a half until finally,
We went to the ER.
yeah, because
I got to experience, what did they call it?
I think it was the acute
Back
care.
bay.
Oh yeah, the bay.
Resuscitation unit.
Acute care and resuscitation unit.
Yeah.
Well, so finally I couldn't breathe even on 15 liters of oxygen, so hence the ER trip. And yeah, apparently they take not breathing really seriously, because they whisked me straight on back to the, access bay. I think that's recess bay. To the recess bay, which was an intense experience.
Very.
Yeah.
And Catherine and I didn't like it when they closed the curtain and we couldn't see what they were doing.
No,
Well, so-
it was just like TV. It was
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah, like they wheeled me back, and there were like, I want to say like 10 doctors and nurses and I don't know what, just like standing there waiting for me. And as soon as they like got me into the bay, they all like jumped on me, and like everybody's like doing different things and hooking me up to monitors and putting in an IV and putting on oxygen and like all this stuff, and it was just like crazy. And I guess that's when they like shut the curtain and you guys couldn't see what was going on.
Yeah, it was intense. It was extremely intense.
So yeah, apparently I was in a serious state. So that was an interesting life adventure.
But we knew that you were getting a little bit better when you started to crack jokes back there. So as soon as you got the high flow oxygen, you started to feel a little bit better. And
Oh,
started
yeah. Much better with the high flow oxygen. The regular oxygen was not cutting it. So yes, then I got my sense of humor back and started cracking jokes again. And then I was inpatient again after being home for a week and a half, after having already been inpatient for 6 weeks. And I knew at that point that I was not getting out before transplant. And the doctor, pretty much told me like, yeah, you're here now until the transplant happens. He did tell me my high flow, even the high flow, I was like on a lot of high flow. Like, I think I went up to 50, 55 on the high flow. High flow only goes up to 60. The doctor did, have a conversation with me, within a day or two of being there, and told me that if things got much worse, they were going to have to send me to the ICU and put me on a ventilator. And that if the ventilator didn't hold me, that they were going to have to put me on ECMO, which is a heart-lung machine, where like they put in 2 catheters and one, takes out your blood, it runs it through the machine to oxygenate it, and then the other one puts it back into you. So they warned me that this was pretty much on the horizon for me, the way things were going. But then instead, it was 4 days later, and we had actually just been joking because over the weekend, like on Saturday, I was joking with you about how, because the doctor had said, well, the transplant might even come through this weekend. You're at the top of the list, for the hospital. You're the second on the list in the region. It might come through this weekend. So I was just saying to my mom, I was like, well, Mother's Day is on Sunday, and I've been too sick to get you anything. Yeah. So I hope it's on Sunday because this is the only gift that I can possibly give you. And guess what happened? So midnight, so Saturday night, Sunday, Mother's Day, a nurse comes into my room and says, you're about to get a very exciting phone call. And I was like, seriously? Like, lungs? So they called me and said that they had a potential match. And nothing was guaranteed at that point because when they get the initial match, I guess they match it based on paperwork and on scans and imaging and like whatever stuff they have. But until they actually go see the lungs and, check them out and make sure that they look good and that they're, appropriate, until they do that, nothing is guaranteed. But so they told me that there was a potential match, but that nothing was going to be happening until the afternoon. Nothing was happening before noon. So just, have a good night's sleep. Like, really? So I, at that point, I had like a second of hesitation where I was kind of like, do I wake my mom and Catherine up when nothing is going to be happening? And then we're all going to be sitting and being awake and anxious. And then I was like, they'll kill me if I don't call them immediately.
And that was the correct answer.
Yes. You definitely did the correct thing.
Yeah. So how was it for you guys when you saw my number pop up on the screen at midnight?
I said, oh my God, what's wrong?
That's funny. I knew right away as soon as I saw the call. I was like, oh, you got the call. Like, it's going down. It's happening. Yeah, I was super excited and nervous and scared and freaked out and excited.
And then when she told me, my response is, well, what do I do now?
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, now I was like, do we need to come in? Like, do I get dressed and come in right away? Because this is what, like midnight?
This is
Yeah,
midnight.
midnight, yeah. Then
Right.
you said, oh, just go back to sleep.
I know. I basically did the same thing that the doctor did to me. Like, there's nothing we can do. Don't rush in. Try to get some sleep.
And believe it or not, I did go to sleep.
Yeah, me too, for a couple hours.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for a little bit. I guess.
I eventually did get back to sleep for a little bit.
Did you? You were
Yeah.
able to sleep? Good.
I mean, granted, it's not like I was sleeping comfortably at that point anyway, because
True.
life was not comfortable at that point. Things were really bad and really uncomfortable. So sleep was already a challenge. This was just like an added layer of challenge. Especially because it was still up in the air. It was like, I might be getting my transplant today, or it might be a false alarm, because false alarms happen. Sometimes they'll go check the lungs and, they'll find something that's not good about them and say, sorry, transplant is off.
Right, and they even told us you could be down there getting prepped, and at that point be told it could be a false alarm. So you don't know until you're actually in
Opened
surgery.
Stick them in you.
So yeah, so that was that night. Then you guys both came in the morning.
Yeah, 10ish, I think I came in.
Yeah, right around. Yeah, we came in around the same time. Yeah, around 10.
And then we all sat around and waited for a while.
We sat and stared at Corinne.
Right. Are you ready for this? Are you ready? I was super excited. It was very, very exciting though. I couldn't wait for the morning to come.
It's funny because I was like I get a lot of people ask like about like I think like my emotions and how I was feeling, and I think I was just so beat down at that point that like I was just like, please just get this over with. Like I can't take life anymore. So like I was just like, I didn't even have like the capacity to be like scared or excited or like any major emotions, because I was just so exhausted from existing. So I was just kind of like, okay, like good, like let's get this done. I'm gonna sleep and I'm gonna survive, and we just need to get this over with. And then when was it that they finally brought me downstairs?
I think it was it that late?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think you went until 3:30. You didn't go into surgery until like 3.
Yeah, so I guess somewhere around 1, 2 o'clock, they brought me downstairs for like, not even, for like the pre-prep, to like just get me into a gown and have me, do all my paperwork and, stuff. For some reason, they didn't let you guys come down
for a
with
while.
me.
Yeah.
And then we had a fun adventure when they finally said, yes, they can come down, because this was all happening on the weekend. This was on a Sunday. So the operating room never closes, but the operating room does work at like a short, skeleton crew for the weekend, which was kind of creepy as they were like wheeling me down like all these like darkened, empty hallways. I was felt like I was in some sort of post-apocalyptic scene.
It was just you. Yeah.
Like literally, there was not a single other patient there. I didn't see any staff until they finally got me to my little area was the one spot that had light in it. Like it was a little freaky.
Now relax.
But so the part that we didn't consider is that things were like locked and closed. And what happened to you guys?
We went down to where the staff told us it would be, which was the normal place where pre-op is done, but it was closed and there was nobody there and it was dark.
Right, and we were lost.
And we were lost and we wandered and we ran into Dr. Courtwright.
Right, and then Dr. Courtwright started FaceTiming with you. He's like, where the heck are you?
And then I get I'm getting like texts and calls from them like, we can't get through, we don't know where you are. The nurse is like off trying to find them because she realized, she's like, oh, the elevator's not gonna come down, let me go get them. It was like total chaos. Then finally I get like, a video message, or Facebook Messenger, video from you, but it's Dr. Courtwright, and he's like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know. Like, they wheeled me in. I'm like half dead. Like, I don't know where I am. So I'm like panning the phone around, be like, anything look familiar? So that was a fun and exciting adventure. But eventually, you made it.
We found you.
Dr. Courtwright is a full service doctor.
He is. He was excellent.
Yeah, and then, meanwhile, we still don't know if the lungs are good or not.
Right.
Nobody has actually told us that until, it was anesthesia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anesthesia comes out to do, paperwork and consents and whatever. And I think you asked, right?
Yeah.
You, like, have we heard? Are the lungs good? And they were like, oh yeah, the lungs are fine. Like,
no big deal.
was anybody going to tell us?
Right, we're waiting for this news.
Great.
Yeah. Big news.
So that big news was like dropped like so casually and offhandedly, like, oh yeah, the lungs are fine.
No big
a
deal.
year ago.
Do it all the time.
And like meanwhile, like, and we're all just like, and yeah, and then it was, we waited down there a little bit more.
Yeah. Not too much longer.
Not too
after
much
that.
longer before they wheeled me back in, and I said a little prayer before going in and said goodbye to everybody. And then I was unconscious. So you guys can take over from here, because I don't know what happened after that.
You know what it was? It was a lot of waiting. It was hours and hours of waiting. We went to like a little waiting room, and I pushed chairs together to make like a bed. And we waited. The doctor said that he would come out and give us an update right around 6 hours, I think. He said he would.
Right, how long did they say it was going to, they said it was going to take like.
Anywhere between 10 and 12 hours.
Right, the surgery, yeah.
So, nurse came in, didn't they? And said that the doctor was looking for us.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So we walked out into the
And
hallway.
when was that? How much longer? That
That
was
was at 6
hours.
That was about 6 hours.
And the
in.
doctor's walking down the hall, so we're expecting an
Right.
update. And the doctor's like, well, all done. She did good. And we're like, all done? So another surprise. And, you know, he's like, she did really well and everything's good. And so we're like,
Yeah, we thought he was just coming out to give an update, but here he is saying, oh, she's finished, we're closing her up now. So that was
and he
really
was very
shocking.
deadpan. You
Very,
know,
wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was.
So typical surgeon, you know, not a lot of emotion there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like,
When can we see her? Yeah, like, and then he's like, oh, she's back in the ER. You know, you guys can go see her.
The
I guess-
OR.
Yeah, the OR, ER, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, where
One
were
of
they
those
doing
lab
and then they were
transplants.
moving her to ICU, and it would be a little while before we could see her.
Right. Yeah,
So we went back
So how was
to
that?
a different waiting room.
that's right, yeah. Another waiting room.
We got to see many waiting rooms.
How was that when he like told you like, all done, everything's good?
I think your mom and I like hugged and just freaked out in general. We were just like, oh my god, it's successful, like it worked. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, him walking down the hall like
Oh, I can just
deadpan.
see, I can picture
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought, honestly, I can say this now, I thought he was coming down the hall with bad news. Just the look on his face, he looked so deadpan, and I guess I'm not used to like medical professionals like that. Like he just looked very like business-like, and I thought, oh God, what happened? You know, he's coming out to tell it. It's something that couldn't be told on the phone. He needs to come tell us in person. And he's like, oh yeah, she's done. We closed her up. Everything went great. Like, oh my God. So yeah, then we waited a little bit longer. What, like another hour after he came out?
About that. Yeah, I would
guess
say.
they had to like get you all blanketed up, and they had you ensconced in blankets. They had you like a cocoon.
And with your hands tied down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Your hands are tied, which you did not.
Which
like.
you did not like.
You were not. a
Well,
fan.
but I wasn't awake for a while, right?
Yeah,
So you
you-
came back and saw me in the ICU, and I was hooked up to an incredible amount of
Yes.
stuff.
You had jugular and lines coming out of your neck and regular IVs, and you were intubated, of course.
Right, I had the ventilator breathing for me.
And
Had a Foley catheter, because obviously I couldn't get out of bed to go to the bathroom. I feel like there was, oh, and I had my drain tubes.
You had like
how
six.
could we forget
Yeah,
that?
you had
6
three
chest
on each
tubes.
side.
I had 3 on each side coming out to help drain, you know,
Your lungs.
I guess, well, blood and whatever stuff was,
Yeah,
you know,
fluid.
fluid around that was in the chest from, you know, from the surgery. So each one of those went into like its own little like drain pod
Box,
thing, this
yeah.
little like box that like caught all the grossness.
You had a lot of machines going on, a lot of like stuff and tubes and wires. I remember before the surgery, they actually showed us a drawing of the room just so we would be prepared
Right.
because the room is so intense looking.
Were
know,
you
it's-
prepared?
I was, given that, I was still not prepared. I wasn't prepared for what I walked in on. It was, you know, it was a lot of machines, a lot of tubes, a lot of wires. And yeah, even given the, you know, the preparation they gave us with the drawing and everything, it was still like, wow.
I was.
Yeah, your
You
mom,
were-
your
I'm a
mom
nurse,
was
so-
way better than I. Yeah, you were way better than I was.
And then
we weren't there that long before
Mm-mm.
you started fussing.
Yeah.
Well, wait, no. First, you came in and saw me the surgery was finished somewhere around between midnight, right?
Is that when it was? I thought it was like
Earlier? No,
No,
6.
6
Six.
o'clock. Yeah. around
6. So you saw me in the early evening, and then you went. They told you to go home, right?
They did. Well, the one guy there, he was like, we don't really like people to sleep over here in case there's like an emergency, like tripping over wires and stuff. He said, you guys can go home. There's nothing to see. You'll just watch.
Right,
Remember?
right,
Wasn't he
right,
like, yeah,
right.
he was like, you guys will
That's
just be
right.
watching or sleeping.
Right, and they said they were going to keep me asleep for
Right.
a while, and
Right.
that you shouldn't bother staying because I was
Right,
just
I
going
forgot
to be
about that.
sleeping
Yeah.
for a while. So then you guys went home,
Right.
and then came back.
Right,
Mhm.
came back in the morning. Right.
I was like, you know what? Let me stop by and see you. I mean, like,
Yeah,
check on you.
that's sweet of you to take some time out of your busy
You know.
schedule.
But yeah, we came back the next morning. That was like, I think you started to come to around 15 hours after the surgery. Was it?
That's when they took out the vent. I came to, I think, sooner than.
Oh, was it even
Yeah,
sooner?
because it was in the morning. I'm not real good on remembering details, but I
Yeah.
probably got there around 10. That was my usual routine. And you were starting to, like I said, fuss.
Starting to stir, yeah. Your
Yeah.
mom actually at one point like touched your forehead, and I remember she was like brushing your hair, and I remember your eyes started to flicker. That's when I knew. I was like, oh my god, she's waking up.
So that's where you say I was fighting the anesthesia.
Yes.
And I don't know. I didn't know if that was like normal or whatever. So I was just like, just relax, just try and relax and like go to sleep. But you were like, nope, I'm waking up. You were ready to go. Like,
Yeah, and the first thing was the restraints. You wanted nothing to do with those restraints.
Because they had my hands, tied, I mean, soft, comfortable restraints. It wasn't like, torture or anything. But my hands were down like this so that I couldn't pull at any of the tubing. I do remember part of the reason I was so annoyed about the restraints is that I knew that I was coherent and that I wasn't.
You think so?
I knew what had just happened.
Coherent.
I knew where I was. I knew that I had lots of tubes and stuff, and I knew that I couldn't pull them out. So I knew that I wasn't going to pull them out, and it was annoying me and I knew that's why my hands were tied, but I had no way to communicate
right.
hey guys, I'm okay, you can set my hands free, because I had a tube down my throat, so I couldn't talk.
Well, I remember at one point the nurse came in and your mom and I were both like right at your bed, and the nurse said, didn't she say something like, oh, if you guys are here, we can take the
I think I
restraints off."
asked her.
Oh, is that-
And
yeah.
she said, if you're right here, we can take them off.
Yep. And then at one point you reached up to scratch your nose, and your mom and I were ready to tackle you. We were just like, do not pull anything out of it. But you were great. You knew. You were an excellent patient. You knew.
Very amusing.
Yeah.
patient.
You are
We
very.
thoroughly enjoyed you.
Exactly. You were very amusing.
What
The
is-
first thing you wanted to know, and this is what you talking about how coherent you were, you really weren't. You wanted to know if you were okay. So I'm not sure you at first really knew that the surgery was done,
That's right.
And-
yeah.
everything was okay, because that was the first thing that you tried to communicate, and I don't remember how I
You knew, yeah. how
got
you
that
got
from
that,
you,
but you
but
knew.
you were concerned, was everything okay? And once they said, yes, you had the surgery, everything's good, you're doing fine, that relaxed you a little bit for a short time.
And that's when we started to try and really communicate with you. Didn't we have didn't we do the letter board?
Well, first you started with trying to write
her
with your finger
hands,
in the
that's right,
sheets.
Yeah.
She's trying to spell something in the sheets. And at first it's just circles in the sheets. And then she's trying to spell letters in the sheets. Well, have you ever tried to read something someone's writing with their finger in the sheets? Well, I can't, if someone was conscious, I don't know that I could do
Right,
it.
yeah.
It wasn't going anywhere. So the nurse said, let me get a
A letter board.
letter board. Well, on one side there's letters and the other side there's pictures.
No.
So we started with the letters.
The part we didn't realize until after the fact is that my vision was shifted. Like my vision was off. So if I thought, I would think that I was pointing to one square, but I was actually pointing to like the next square over, or like, you know, shifted like down and off a little bit. So, but none of us realized that at the time. So here I thought that I was, you know, spelling, you know, either pointing at the pictures or spelling words, but really I was doing gibberish, and my poor mom and Catherine are trying to figure out what the heck I'm trying to say.
Yes, and meanwhile, this is all when she's pretty heavily sedated and should just be asleep. But no, not my stubborn daughter. She had to try to communicate. So that we started with the letters, and when that didn't go well, we flipped the board over and tried the pictures. Well, the only picture she was pointing at was pain.
Right, the broken arm
The
picture.
broken arm.
Yeah, we kept saying, is there something wrong with your arm? Does your arm hurt? And you're like, no. Well, why are you pointing to the broken arm?
Yeah, so that didn't go well at all. So we kind of gave up on that. And then we tried writing.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, then we got a pen and paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was funny because you would start to write a really good letter. You'd be like, B, and then you'd fall asleep. It was really hard to understand. But I think the first thing you wrote was, I got this.
I'm gonna rock this.
I'm gonna rock this, yeah.
Well, because they had come in, because by then, so I was still on the ventilator, but they had already said that everyone who had come in and seen me had said how excellent I was doing, and then they were saying, yeah, she's almost off the ventilator, she's, almost ready to come off, which was like really quick. Like that was, it hadn't even been 24 hours, and I was ready to come off the ventilator. So I think that's the point where I wrote, like, I'm gonna rock this.
And at one, I think you even wrote, did they ventilate me? Remember that?
Yeah.
She was like, did they
Yes,
even
you have a
ventilate
tube down your throat.
You literally were ventilated. You didn't even know. You're just like, did they even ventilate me?
So that's how coherent you
Okay.
were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And after all that, the one thing that you really wanted, and somehow you were doing this, and it took me a long time to figure out what that meant. And somehow that meant to give you your phone.
You wanted to.
I don't know if you were doing the old-fashioned rotary dialing, or I don't know how that was translating into your phone, but I guess the only thing I could figure out that you might want would be your phone. So he gave you your phone, and what do you start to do? You're intubated, you're sedated.
And I'm posting on Facebook!
Unbelievable.
That's when I realized that my vision was off, because I would see that I thought I was pressing one letter and a different letter would pop up on the screen. So that's how I figured out, I'm not seeing things correctly. And then I had to kind of it took 2 hours to write 5 words, because I was trying to accommodate for the shift and be like, okay, if I want this, I really have to push over here. And then if I messed it up, I had to find the delete button, which I couldn't see correctly. So then I wasn't deleting things.
So did she just wait until the sedation was decreased? No.
Not me.
But you managed to post a brief post. I think you said hashtag overachiever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I said I'm gonna rock this, hashtag overachiever.
Yep.
And then everybody went crazy.
And then Facebook went bananas. Yeah, and then let's see. After that, they started to taper down your medicines, the anesthesia,
The sedation.
the sedation. Yeah. And then you started to come back to life slowly. It was impressive, though. It wasn't even 24 hours after the surgery, right? And you started to
Yep, they extubated me, pulled out the
Tube.
tube, the vent. I have a fun and exciting video of that.
And we
You
got
said
to watch.
Right? You said your first words right after they pulled the tube out.
Yes, they specifically wanted me to speak. I guess there's a possibility that you could like have had a problem or something, so they made me say my name. So, and I did, very hoarsely, but I did it.
All right, big clock here. We're just going to suction down in the back of your throat here just to make sure there's no mucus sitting back there. Just going to start to take that tape off.
Oh, some more tape coming off, Rin.
So on 3, I'm going to have you take a big deep breath in, okay? All right. 1, 2, 3. Big deep breath. Good. Big, big cough. Nice big cough. Good. Nice strong cough. You can spit out anything that you have right in here. Beautiful. Good job. I'm just going to put some oxygen in your nose. Right over your head. A little bit of oxygen in your nose here. Great job. Can you say your name for us? We want to hear that voice. Great! Great job! Awesome!
Those shiny new lungs are working, Rin. Much better?
Then the tube? Yeah.
I was only in the ICU for not even 3 days.
Yeah.
So after that it was, I don't remember the ICU very well.
It was pretty uneventful.
Right, it was all, you slept a lot, you know. At one point, I think, did they move her to a chair? They moved you to like a chair. I remember I came in one time and you were sitting in a chair. I was like, oh my God, you're sitting in a chair.
I do remember that the glass like window that, because it's like the ICU, it's not a regular hospital room. It's more like a cubicle with a whole lot of equipment, and it's open, and it's glass. Like there's not like a wall. There's a glass wall so that they can always see in and see what's going on in the room. And I remember at one point that the doctors would stand outside the room and write whatever the plan was on the glass. And I, of course, am nosy and wanted to know what they were saying, but it was backwards because I was seeing the other side of it. And then I realized that I could take a picture on my phone and I could reverse the picture so that I could read it. But because I can't just lay in the ICU and heal, no, I have to
You wanted
do
to know
stuff.
what was going on all around you, yeah.
But then I still didn't understand half of what was written because they were all abbreviations that I was not familiar with. So all my efforts were in vain. And then, after 3 days, I was on 2 liters of oxygen, and everything was going well. And they said, okay, you're ready to go up to the floor, to the post-transplant unit. So we moved me up there, and as soon as I got upstairs, they were like, do you think you could stop the oxygen? I was like, I think so. So we took me off the oxygen, and I never looked back.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Coming from what, 55 liters
Yeah.
before the surgery? Yeah. That was pretty
To nothing.
Yeah.
Down to nothing. And then, yeah, and then it was the post-transplant unit, which was also pretty intense in a different way. Well, first of all, you know, as you know, the various as they took me off like the heavy sedation, I started having more pain. I was definitely pain. I feel like was the big issue of my stay
Yes,
there,
definitely.
trying to figure out the right dosages, the right timing. My biggest problem was overnight. Even if we would like wake me up and give me, you know, pain medicine on regular intervals, I still kept waking up in the morning in agony. For some reason, you know, just sleeping and I guess position, maybe just the fact that I wasn't moving, everything just kind of like tightened up and pulled and was pretty awful. You were there for some pretty awful mornings, Mom.
Yeah, we got some rough mornings.
But they got me right up out of bed.
Yep.
Got me walking. Was it the not my first? So I went up on day 3,
Yeah.
and on day 4, they had me walking already. I mean, with like a walker. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't able to walk by myself.
They didn't waste any time getting you walking.
No, and they did not waste
No.
any time. And they even like the walker. Like I started off with like a high walker, and I only used that once before they brought me down to like a regular like low walker and had me using that. And then after like a little over a week, they took my walker away and made me just walk by myself. Yeah, they had me, you know, go into physical therapy and to occupational therapy, and you know, really just.
She was very busy. All these therapies and all these different doctors coming in and out.
Yeah,
and
you
the-
were. You had busy days there.
It was like constant activity. Like there was always either I was like doing, because I was doing nebulizer treatments also to help, like it was like a special nebulizer. It was almost like I don't even know how to describe it. It was it's called a metaneb, but
With positive pressure.
right, so it was like blasting out air like heavily, and I'm supposed to like breathe it in while, you know, doing the nebulizer, you know, medication through it. So that was pretty intense because that was like really like basically inflating my lungs. So I did that multiple times a day. I did, you know, obviously, like I said, PT, OT, going for walks. And I had so many different teams looking after me and they all had to come in every day and see me. So I would see, you know, the pulmonary team, and then I would see the surgeons, the surgical team, and my blood sugars, you know, have been high, you know, post-transplant, so now I'm seeing the diabetes team.
Don't forget
and
the
I have-
transplant team.
transplant team, the, you know, speech is coming to see me because it took a little while for my swallow reflex to come back and for me to be able to like safely, you know, swallow things. And it was just, oh gosh, I feel like there was for sure more. Social work, of course, is, you know, stopping by because, you know, major life event. And then, you know, it was
The
at
pharmacy.
the pharmacy. And my CF team came to visit me a couple times, so that was nice. And it was really just constant activity. I came back pretty quickly. I was very incapacitated at first. I needed help to get out of bed to use, I couldn't even make it to the bathroom. I was using a bedside commode, and I couldn't do that by myself.
Well, there were 6 chest tubes. You know.
But it was
that's
also-
a little difficult to get out of bed.
But even
with.
aside from that, it was my balance was so off immediately post-transplant. Like I wasn't stable to like stand or walk, and I was in a lot of pain. Also, I had my first experience of having somebody else wipe my butt for me, so I had no dignity left at this point. We can do anything. I got nothing left. But like I was that incapacitated, you know, like I could not get to the commode and I could not clean myself up afterwards. Like I could do nothing. But that only lasted for like a few days, I think. And then like slowly I was able to like walk a little bit more, like, but it still took a good, at least a week before I was able to walk to the bathroom with assistance.
Yeah.
Like my balance was shot post-transplant, which apparently is very common after, I mean, for sure after this, but after major surgeries. I had to relearn a lot of things. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to swallow. It just basic things that I had to, you know, learn how to like be a functional human being again. So that took a little while, but not as long as it could have taken.
No.
So, and I tried my best to be good and like do my exercise and work and really I also had to learn how to breathe again. Like now I had these new lungs, which to put them in, they like deflate them to squeeze them in. So now I needed to work hard to reinflate them. I had actually, you want to grab it? My incentive spirometer, which I would breathe into. It's funny because like instinct is to blow into it, but it's not. You breathe in and try and like by breathing in, you raise the little ball up. And I had to really like work to breathe in and inflate my lungs so that they would, you know, be healthy and start working again. So yeah, there was a whole lot going on.
You worked hard.
I did work hard.
You did.
I did. And I was there. I was inpatient for about a little over 2 weeks.
2.5 weeks or
Two and a half weeks. And then they decided that I was doing well enough that I could skip inpatient rehab and go straight home.
Yeah.
Anything else that you guys want to say about the whole experience?
I just want to say that I'm really happy for you that you get another chance at life. And I also want to say that I'm grateful to the donor for giving you that opportunity.
That's like, it was a very, I remember even when they called me and said, you know, that they have lungs, you know, potential lungs for me. One of the first things I thought was, somebody just died. Like this is, I'm gonna be getting life, but right now, at this exact moment, there's a family that just lost somebody and that's grieving, and that like it's very eerie and surreal to know that, you know, like my life came about because somebody else died. And yeah, I'm very grateful, you know, to my donor and to their family. And it is, you know, it's a hard thing to swallow and to think about and to realize. Like, I wish that it didn't have to be like that. You know, I wish that we could have just had this come about and not have it be someone else's loss. But at least,
But
you
yeah,
know,
you get a second chance at life. Like, it's amazing.
right. I mean, they're gone, but their lungs are still here.
Yeah, I mean, she would have been dead anyway,
Right.
and her lungs not been used for something, so,
That's a good
you know,
point.
her family has that as a positive to make out of her death, that her organs are being used to give someone else life, and that must be something that they can feel good about.
That's so true. That's a good point.
I mean, I said a prayer, you know, after you called for her family, and I've prayed for them off and on. And it would be nice to be able to communicate that to them, to let them know that that's happening. But
Right, I'm sure they would be happy to see what a difference it's made for you and for everyone around you. What an impact it's made, what a positive impact it's made. it's night and day for you. I mean, it literally saved your life.
Yeah,
So
very much so.
it's amazing to see this turnaround in you. You're just,
And it's just wild now to like think of like being able to like make plans and like do things and think of like things like, oh, we could go do this activity or that activity. Things that I haven't even considered for years because I've just been too sick for them to even be a consideration. And now it's just like, oh yeah, you want to go out and do whatever? Like,
The
cool,
Chinese
let's do
Lantern
it.
Festival. The picture from the Chinese Lantern Festival was so awesome to see
Right.
that you were able to walk from the car to there, walk all around there.
no wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yep, just on your own. That was, you're right, that was so impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a whole new life, and it's just amazing.
You deserve it.
I'm very proud of you
Aw.
because I know you'll make good use of them.
Well, that's also kind of like part of the like, I feel like, you know, I've heard other people say this, and like I definitely like feel this, that like I have a responsibility to my donor, you know, and to their family. You know, like they made the ultimate sacrifice. They made, you know, the family was able to, you know, in a time of like such deep crisis and pain, was able to make this decision. And I owe it to them to live a good life and to live the best life possible. Like I can't, you know, I can't waste these lungs.
And I know you won't.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Congratulations on your new lungs. Your shiny new lungs.
Shiny new lungs.